I'm Phil Thomas and I run Hapus Eggs. We're a very, very small egg producer in the Bridgend area. Okay. Before I say a little bit more about that, I'll tell a bit more about the farm and how it's incorporated in the whole farm itself. So the farm is literally 2.5 miles away from here. If you're looking north of you, you've got the windmills on the mountain. To the left of the windmills, our farm is. We run sheep and cows on the mountain up there. So we've got 300 pedigree clean ewes, which a lot of the lambs go for meat, whereas the females are the lucky ones. They end up going for breeding and I sell to local farmers or to pedigree sales, so they could go all over the country. I've got 20 Devon sucklers, Devon Reds. They're a native breed, obviously, Devon, but over the last 30 years, everybody was going towards continental cattle, you could say, because they were faster growing, more efficient at turning grain, grass into meat. I've gone a little bit the other way, gone to Devon Reds, because we've got the cows on the mountain at 1,000 feet. The type of forage they're eating is not lush perennial ryegrass with high dry matter and high digestibility. It's more mat grass, Molinia. Those cows will survive on top of the mountains. I only brought them down last year, or this year. I brought them down in January. They're up there until just after Christmas and brought them down. So they're quite a hardy cow. I've got a haylage enterprise, which I sell hay to the local equine establishment, and I've got a small livery on the yard. And then I've got 8,000 hens, which is where Hapus comes in. I've got them split into two, one flock of 6,000, one flock of 2,000. Okay. They are all free-range hens as well. And I'm Freedom Food accredited, which I'll come on to later, and Lion Code as well accredited. If you've got any questions, ask them as we go ahead. Okay?
Why have you split the flocks then?
Right. Yeah. I used to only have 6,000 birds, and originally I bought the chicken farm back in 2008. That was next to my parents' farm. So I bought that in 2008. So we had just 6,000 birds, and every 14 months you've got to sell the birds, disinfect the shed, and then get new birds in. And that process of cleaning it out and waiting for the new birds to start laying takes about 2 months. So I was without egg for 2 months. So I had to go and buy egg elsewhere. And I was finding buying those eggs in those 2 months. One, I felt like I was cheating. It wasn't my egg. I thought it was perfectly legal because I had all the figures, all the numbers. I was a packing station. And also it was costing more. I was buying the eggs in for £1.20 a dozen, whereas I can probably produce an egg. It varies now. At the moment, my production cost, I would say, is costing me about 93 pence to produce a dozen eggs. It goes up and down depending on the price of wheat. So
you change those 6,000 and 2,000 at different times?
Yes, so they overlap each other. Now, I was going to say, when the birds come in, they're at 16 weeks of age. So I buy the birds in, they're about 1.3 kilos. People call them point of lay. You might have heard of that, point of lay. So they come in 16 weeks, very, very small comb on them, weighing 1.3 kilos. The birds start laying at 20 weeks of age. This time of year, sorry. Right, I use a Highline, a commercial breed called Highline, but if you were to look back in their history, they might call them it's like a Warren, the basic typical bird. There's probably 60 to 70% of the market in the UK, commercial breeders, is Highline or a strain of Highline. There's not a lot of difference between them. They are the most popular breed because they're found to be the hardiest. Feather retention, which is important, is improved a lot lately, and that's why I keep the Highline. But there's other good ones on the market. Bovine Browns, they're quite good. Loma Browns, they're quite good. A lot of them are brown. We keep the birds until they're 72 weeks of age. That is, we'll come back to that in a minute. Peak production is from 25 weeks to 30 weeks of age. So they start laying at roughly 20. Their peak production is going to be 25 weeks to 30 weeks of age. What we will have then, the egg is small, but you will get the occasional double yoker. So out of my 6,000 birds in a day, I'll probably end up having 100, 150 double yolkers for that period only, from 25 to 30 weeks. So if you see an egg and it's a double yolker, you know it's out of a 99% of the chance it's out of a young bird. Okay. They will peak at 95%. So 100 birds, they give you 95 eggs a day. That's what you're looking at. When they leave at 72 weeks of age, they are producing 75% lay. So at 100, we're getting 75 eggs. You say, why do they have to leave then at 72 weeks of age? I don't like that day when they have to go, because they do end up going to hind soup or pack of pies. That's where they've gone. But the problem is the price of feed that you're giving them. I pay roughly 2,000 a week to feed the birds. And if they're not producing over 75%, it's costing me more to feed them than the egg they're giving me. So they've got to go at 72 weeks. You could put them through a molt, but that would take you 6 weeks. And feeding the birds for 6 weeks with no egg production, that's not going to be good. And at the same time, you do need to get the shed empty to disinfect everything, to kill any diseases off. I said when the birds start laying, eggs are like pullets, very, very small pullets, very small eggs. The egg size does increase with age. If you look at the eggs that are in the boxes now, they are not a bad size egg, but I would say they're not a bad size egg. They would range from, there'd be a couple of mediums in there, but a lot of the eggs would be large or extra large.
It's a very large egg, though.
Yeah, some of them very large.
Excuse me, asking, is the method of slaughter we sell them? Do they go for, what do we buy from? Every chicken we get, everything is all halal. Do you have any
No, these go to Gainsborough, and these wouldn't go for a table bird at all, because they are so, I say old, because the birds you buy for a table bird, they're only about 40 days, 45 days old, aren't they? These birds are 72 weeks, so they wouldn't make a good table bird. And not only that, they're a different breed of bird. Because my bird is made for laying an egg every day, whereas the meat bird has got a lot more meat on it. My bird, you pick my birds up, all right, they're 2 kilos, but there's not a lot of weight in them, because they have been sort of bred over the years to make sure they pop that egg out. So all their energy goes into an egg, not into meat production. But my bird, they'd be a bit gamey, I think. They'd be a bit tough on the table. But no, they go to Gainsborough and they'd end up going, so they would be stunned and they get put into, well, last lot went to hind soup. They go everywhere like that, but I know they went to hind soup. Yeah. Stock cubes, that's a good one, yeah. But I don't eat chicken, and I don't eat a lot of egg either. So my wife says, I don't know. She's allergic to egg as well, my wife. So between us all, we don't do much for the industry at all. So as I come back to the egg sizes, you've got a good size egg in those boxes now. Those I sell them as a mixed sizes in the boxes. I can grade them to put them into medium, large, but a lot of customers have said, oh, we like them like that. Sometimes we'll have a small one day and a big one the next day. Now, I've had some complaints from some neighbours when I used to put perhaps 5, 6 big eggs or even double yolkers I've squeezed into the box. You can't. And somebody complained to me, oh, Phil, it's no good for cooking. I can't have these. I want medium eggs, because my recipe says medium eggs. I don't know. But saying that...
It's a double yolker.
Sorry?
How do you know it's a double yolker?
Just the size of it. And just generally the size of it. It would be bigger than that very big egg you got there now. It'd be 25% bigger. Yeah, they will be... I've seen a triple yolker. Yeah, I've had triple yolkers as well. Yeah. But coming back to the eggs here now, these birds that you've got, these eggs here are out of a bird which is 70 weeks of age. Okay, so I would say I'm not totally happy with the shell quality. The shell quality is fine, but I'm not quite... For a 70-week bird, it's a very good quality. Okay. But when they are younger, the shell quality is more uniform, more darker brown, and more solid. These are more brittle, and they will break easier.
What do you feed them? Excuse me,
Yeah, well, we are feeding them on mash. It's layers mash, because a lot of people feed them on layers pellets. But with our shed, it's all mechanicalised. Everything is all automatic. It's all on timer switches. So the birds are outside, the bell goes, and they run into the shed to get the feed. And it goes round. We got mash, so it's literally like flour, but there's bits of grain in it. And that just goes round the shed. We've got 3 conveyor belts round the shed. And they eat from that, and that goes off 6 times a day. So there's always feed there. We could use pellets, but pellets are harder on the machinery, and we feel there's less wastage with the mash. It depends on the situation, but with our automatic, I think the mash is better. If you are a standalone feeder, like a lot of people have got, I think the pellets are better. They're the same analysis of the food when you look at it. The analysis is exactly the same. So, as I say, egg sizes increases with age, but at the same time, the egg quality goes down. So as the bird gets older, the egg quality gets reduced. As I say, these birds are 70 weeks of age. The shell quality isn't as good as a 30-week-old egg, 30-week bird egg. It comes on the expensive thing. There's no such thing as chicken feed being cheap. The birds eat 130 grams per bird per day. That's what they eat. When you have them first, they probably only eating about 80 grams, but within 2 weeks, they're up to 130 grams, and you feel it on your pocket then.
Would they eat constantly? If there was food there for them, would they just eat and eat and eat?
No, when the bell goes, they're all running like mad to get to because when the feed comes round in the conveyor belt, there's feed there all the time, but the conveyor belt is topped up, and they are running because at that time, in the mash is flour, soya, rapeseed meal. There is chunks of wheat, and they are running for those chunks of wheat. They like the whole wheat. There's only a few, well, there's quite a lot of wheat in it, but it's only a few whole, and they really love that. And if you go there sort of half hour after that feed has been round, all that's left is mash, no grain at all. So they will go like mad for that, but they won't eat constantly, no. A lot of the time they're out scratching outside in the fields, making potholes. So when I lock the birds away at night, I twist my ankle in the I've done that a few times. So no, they range. It's nothing for them to go 400 metres from the shed in the daytime. But we can look at that when we come to pests. Right, I was going to say, with the shell quality decreasing, I give them oyster shell. Yeah, I give them grit as well, but I also make sure they get a high amount of oyster shell, especially from about week 50 of age. Up until about week 50, they're fine. But after week 50, I put a lot of calcium in the diet, and usually in the form of oyster shell. That's how I do it. Right, we're coming on to husbandry. We've looked at a little bit of it, but one of the main things we do monitor the water and feed intake. And the first thing, if we see every day, 12:30, we look at the water intake for the day, for the 24 hours gone past. And you see the water, at the moment they're drinking about 1,300 litres in the one shed. If we see us down to 1,000, we think, oh, something wrong here, something major wrong. And so that's the first thing we will look at. And it could be due to red mite in the shed, or it could be, one of the worst ones we get is IB, sort of a bronchitis. So we do monitor the water and feed intake every day. The tap water we got in the shed. Obviously the birds are out, so there's pools of water, and we've got a stream nearby, so they do go there. But tap water. A lot of farmers do have a borehole or well. If you've got that, we haven't got that, you have to get the water tested, obviously. Yeah.
Does the weather make a difference to the drinking, as it were?
Yes, on a hot day they'll drink more, and believe it or not, on a hot day the birds won't go out the shed very often. They don't like going out the shed. We've got a few shades around, and they'll go to the shades, but a lot of birds will stay in until 7, 8 o'clock at night when the sun goes down, and then they'll go out. Yeah. They don't want to go out in that sun, no.
What's the latest you're looking at?
The birds are left out at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's by the Freedom standards. Freedom. It is Freedom Foods, but it's also RSPCA, and it's the general free range rule. They got to be out by 9 o'clock in the morning, and then it's up to them when they come in. They are in. I go down at the moment. I'm going down about 10:15 at the moment to lock the birds in. that is one thing I would like to get on the shed is automatic popples, so they would shut on their own, so I wouldn't have to go down, and I could set a camera up and just watch it from my phone or watch it from the house to make sure they're all in. So at the moment we're going down at 10:15 at night, but in the winter months I'm locking them away at 4:30. It just all goes on day length, so they just naturally come in when it's getting dusk.
Get many predators?
Yeah, we got foxes. Yeah, fox.
Buzzards don't bother you or anything like
Yes, we've had trouble with buzzards as well. Yeah, I'll come on to that now because buzzard was the biggest problem this year. So egg size, we have to manage the egg size by what we feed them. It's to do with some of the amino acids that we feed them in the feed. Linolate is one of them. We don't want to get the egg size too big too quickly. If I have my way, I want it just to produce a medium egg. That's what my ideal egg would be. It takes less out of the bird, and the egg quality at the end of the life of the flock is better. You don't have to feed them so much oyster shell. So we look at egg size, and at the moment my egg size, average egg size, is around about 63, 64 grams. I'm happy with that for this size, for this age of bird. I know a colleague of mine, his egg size is 68 grams, and he's got massive trouble with the shell quality on his eggs. You just pick the eggs up and they just break in your hand. It's just because he's got too big an egg earlier on. Light management. When the birds come into the shed, when we buy them at 16 weeks, they're only on 10 hours of light in the shed. And thereafter, every week, we put the hours up to 11, 12, 13, 14, until we get up to about 15 and a half hours light. So the birds will only have 15 and a half hours light in the shed. They've got light outside, obviously. But you can go up to 16 hours by the Freedom Foods regulation, but I stick at 15 and a half maximum. They need light to lay, because if in nature, if the bird was running around and you're getting towards October, November time, how many of you got birds here?
I've had it in the past.
You've had it in the past. And you get to November time and your birds go off lay, yeah, and then you have to go and buy your egg. Because, well, I couldn't have 6,000 birds going off lay in November, and I'm feeding them. You know, can you imagine how many? I sold 2,000 a week, feeding them all the way through the winter months before they come back in the lay in March. I'd be bankrupt. So we put them on extra light. So the lights come on at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they go off at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. 9 o'clock at night. That's how it works. So we extend the light in. So we've got to have 15 hours of light there. If they don't have that 15 hours of light, they will go off lay. So light management, and so they start off when they come in, like I said, they're on 10 hours, and every week, as long as they put in enough body weight on, they will put on an extra hour until you're up to about 15 and a half hours light.
I went to a battery farm,
Yes.
and when they opened the doors to show us the hens, they were in the dark.
Yeah, they were in their sleep mode then. What time of day was that then?
Afternoon.
Yeah.
They just opened the doors and the birds, it was quiet, and then as soon as the doors opened, the birds all started.
It just makes me wonder whether, you said it was a caged unit, that was a few years ago I know.
About 15 years
Yeah,
ago.
because the cages, as you saw then, have been banned now.
Yeah, they were all on top of each
That's
other.
it. There was only about 6 birds in a crate, but I expect the crate was only the size of this.
Like a container
Yes.
full of birds in
Yeah.
these little cages, and
Yeah.
they were quiet, and they opened the doors and they all started making a noise there.
Yeah, but they won't lay in darkness. They won't lay in
They had
darkness.
lights to put on at a certain time.
Unless they were a very young bird,
Yeah.
because with my new birds that come in, I got in the 2000, I got 2,000 in the other shed now, and they're a young bird. They only came in 2 weeks ago, 16, so they're 17 weeks now. So they're now up to 11 hours light. And I'm trying to put them to bed, as I say, 6 o'clock in the night at the moment, but it's all so much natural lighting coming in the shed. I've had to try to shutter it all up, but at the same time, I've got fans on the shed as well. At the same time, I don't want to shutter it up too much, because I don't want to obstruct the ventilation in the shed. So they must have been, unless, as you say, they were a cage unit, whether they had somebody on night shift and the birds were they had the birds on at night instead of the daytime. Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that's something I come across when I tell you about my marketing. I get quite frustrated when I'm up against the caged in the catering trade. Litter, that's basically straw on the floor or shavings. So in the shed we've got a plastic platform which the birds feed off, and then we've got an area from the scratch on. This is inside the shed now, so they can express their natural behaviour because they love dust bathing. But most of the birds go outside the dust bath anyway. But they have got the option of dust bathing inside the shed as well. Ventilation I mentioned about. We've got fans in some of the sheds just to get some of the ammonia out, because you can have trouble with ammonia. And that will affect egg production. Possibly the birds can get bronchitis as well by having poor ventilation. So ventilation is important. Nest box training. I'm nest box training some of these new birds coming in now because I want them to lay their eggs in the nest boxes. Because we've had it in the past, we open up at 9 o'clock, all the birds are running out and running over to the nearest hedge and trying to put the egg into the nearest hedge. And that's not what I want. So at the moment, the new birds that are in, when the lights come on first thing in the morning, lights go on in the nest boxes. So they see the light in the nest boxes and they investigate what's in here. So those lights will only be on for 4 weeks. And once they are used to going in those nest boxes to lay their egg, the light goes off then. Pests and diseases. Yes, I would say there's two main pests we've had. The fox, okay. We shot 40 last year, I'll be honest with you. People don't like to hear of it. We shot 40. If we didn't shoot them, we would have lost all our foxes by now. You know, because I've lost 15, 20 birds in one day. You know, you can't go on losing foxes. We have got electric fencing and we have got netting around the field as well. But the fox is a very clever animal, very clever animal. If he came along and took one a week, I could live with that.
Do you have a problem with badgers as well? Because a friend of mine rears geese and different chicken breeds of chicken, and they often get badgers trying to get in to get...
Not with the chickens. I have no trouble with the badger, but saying that, just last week my neighbour went down with TB, and we because he doesn't buy in cattle anywhere, but none of us buy in cattle, so the only thing we're looking at the moment is the badger. We don't know, yeah. But
they had trouble with the badger getting into the...
Yeah.
Whether they were going for the eggs or whatever.
They could well have been, yeah. But we've never had trouble with the badgers with the chickens. Foxes, buzzards, yeah. Well, last year, because it's free range, all the doors, there's 9 doors on the shed for the birds to get out. We had all the doors open naturally. This was 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and I went down to check some sheep, and there was a commotion in the shed. There was a heck of a racket. What's going on in the shed? I went in the shed, and all I could see was a buzzard flying the length of the shed. Because the length of the shed itself is, in meters, is 60 meters in length. So he had a good flight back and forth, and he couldn't get out. But what had happened, he pushed all the birds to the corner, and they went in. They were up to my waist high, so they went into a smother. So in the 4 corners of the shed, we picked up 300 dead birds that night. So that was a buzzard. But a buzzard has also picked up a bird as well and taken him away. Yeah.
So what happened to that buzzard that was in the shed?
He got out on his own.
Right.
He got out the way he got in. He was as scared as the birds were. But so that.
What happens if you've got a buzzard taken off the chickens? Do you get rid of the buzzard, or are you allowed to?
You're not allowed to. I think it's £1,000 or £3,000 fine.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Bear in mind, she's lost about 4 chickens through the buzzard.
Yes, they will. People say they won't. They will only go for the dead bird. They won't. They will go. We have had a goshawk in here as well, and that will go for the chickens. But the buzzard will as well. But as I say, I lost those 298, I think it was, 'cause I remember counting them, putting them into the tracker bucket, and then taking them over to the local hunt to dispose of them. And these birds were so young at the time, they hadn't started laying. They were only about 18, 19 weeks. So I was quite gutted about that. It was quite annoying.
Do you have much trouble with storks and stuff, or not?
Touch wood, no. But somebody came on to me once and said there was a mink in the area, so I was a bit concerned about that. Because a mink in the shed, and that would be disastrous as well. The other pest, one of the other main pests we have, is red mite. If anybody's kept any chickens, you usually end up trouble with red mite being a problem. Very, very small, same size of a tip of a ball on the end of a ball pen. That's the size of it. But you get millions and millions and millions in a chicken shed, and they just hide in all the nooks and crannies. In the daytime, you won't see them. In the nighttime, they'll come out, they'll go onto the bird and suck the bird. They want the blood and make the bird anemic. She'll go off lay, she'll give you a poor quality egg, poor quality shell, So it's something we have to sort out. In the summer months, I would say we are doing it every 4 to 5 weeks. This past 6 weeks, we've had real trouble with red mite in the shed, and we've had to change what we spray the spraying with. Because the red mite does get resistant to the drug or the insecticide you're trying to kill them with. So every 6 months, we seem to somehow have to change the drug we're using. And
Is that because of the size of the flock? That
You-
get
you-
it, or would
you
get
deep-
it if you had it in the couple of chickens?
if you had a flock of 6 or 8 birds, you get red mite as well. Yeah, and it's just one of those things you've got to live with and just get on top of, and just put yourself into a routine that every 4 to 5 weeks spray the shed. In this,
The bird, if the bird's
no, no,
just
because
go in.
if you look at a bird in daylight, you very rarely see a red mite on her. It's only in the night when the birds are perching, they come out then. Yeah, that's
Like mosquitoes, like we get.
yes,
moths.
yes. Only they just crawl.
Yeah.
They don't fly. And you've got to look very carefully. And to find them in daylight, what I do in daylight, I get a piece of paper and I slide it in all the nooks and crannies on the feeders, the nest boxes. And if it comes out with a load of blood on there looking, you know you've got red mite. And then we go in and spray them. So that is a major pest, is red mite. And very often you can, if egg production can drop overnight by 10, 15% just due to red mite. And then similarly, you spray kill the mite off. Very often, 3 days, 4 days later, we just come up, egg levels are back to normal. Diseases, we'll talk about salmonella a bit later on, but we do vaccinate for a vast amount before we get the birds. And they don't inject the bird. The main way they do it, they just spray them with a vapor. They just walk through the shed, so they breathe it in and it goes on the eyes. So that's how we vaccinate birds. So I say we have had in the past an IB infection, a bronchitis infection. The bird, the egg levels dropped by about 20-25%, and it took us about 6 weeks to get over it. In that meantime, we just give them multivitamins. That's the only thing we could give them to get them out of it. Oh, what's going on here? As the shed is quite mechanicalised, conveyor belts, a lot of electric motors, maintaining machinery, we always seem to be maintaining machinery. There's always something to grease, something to oil, a motor to fix. So we're always on top of that. Right, packing of the eggs. The eggs are delivered to the packing room on a conveyor belt. So inside the shed, as I say, if you start from outside, going up into the shed, we've got metal ramps. So the idea is the bird, you want clean egg. So the bird, as she's walking up the ramps, she's cleaning her feet off. Then she goes into a scratching area where I said it was the shavings. So that's trying to get some more muck off. And then she walks across a plastic platform. The plastic platform is the width of this table with me, exactly. And the plastic platform is perforated. So as she's walking, the muck off her claws, off her feet, is falling through into the pit below. So time she gets to the nest box, ideally she's got clean feet, because that's what most of the time you get dirty egg from, is from the feet. And so she gets into the nest box. We've got astroturf in our nest boxes at a slight angle. So she lays her egg on the astroturf, the egg rolls down the astroturf onto a conveyor belt that she can't get at. Because a lot of trouble people get is birds pecking their own egg. With us, the egg rolls away, so the bird can't get at it. It rolls onto a conveyor belt. So then I employ somebody at the end of the conveyor belt, and they just pack the eggs. That's the main thing. When they're packing them, all eggs are stamped with a UK number. And the eggs that we sell are candled and graded. We'll come on to that now in a minute, actually, the Hapus. The eggs, we store them on a pallet, either 540 dozen on a pallet or 720 on a pallet. Okay, 720 is about that high. I don't like doing 720s this time of year when the egg is so big and the shell is brittle. A smaller egg, I don't mind going higher. It's all on plastic trays. Or next door they had a fibre tray, but now we've gone to plastic. Right, destination of the egg sales. I produce from the 2 flocks, it would be 4,000 dozen a week. 3,000 I sell to a national packer, and then 1,000 I sell privately. National packer, if I'll be honest with you, wouldn't like that. They don't like us independent producers taking some of their market off. At the same time, for those eggs there, I get about 95 pence a dozen. Those there, I get 95 pence a dozen. These ones here, I would get anything from 130 to 180. So there's no comparison. So the eggs, where I sell the eggs, private sales. We've got a couple of egg rounds going to people's houses, housing estates, knocking on the door. Quite a few regulars. People coming to the farm. A lot of people come to the farm to buy eggs. Hotels and pubs, 25%. Bakeries, 7%. Shops are by far the most at the moment, 52%. Honesty boxes, 2.5%. We've got a few milk rounds, 3%. For all of you who added that up, there's 0.5% missing. I used to have a few weightlifters, used to buy a lot of egg. There was this one boy, I'm sure he used to have 90 eggs a week. It was ridiculous. He came on to, I saw him the other day, and he said, I said, you stopped buying egg. Oh, it wasn't doing me any good, he said. So I just couldn't get over how many eggs he was eating. Oh, I was having egg all the time, he said. Every meal was egg. So there is 0.5% there missing, so I got to find somewhere to sell at 0.5%. The problem I get, private sales, not too bad. Shops, you could sell them as free range. If you go into the hotels, bakeries, I go in with my eggs, and a lot of people are buying, I don't know how much you are buying eggs for at the moment in the catering trade. Dairies. Yeah, a lot of people, I go to the hotels, or I try and get to the head chef. That's who I really want to talk to, is the head chef, to give him a bit of blurb of why you should be buying free range. Sometimes it goes down well, sometimes it doesn't. But the trouble is, you go in and they are always buying an egg, and he said, what egg have you got? And he said, oh, catering egg. I said, yeah, but what is that, catering? Oh, I don't know, it's catering egg. And when you look at the egg, very often it is caged egg. For me to go in, to compete on price then, is very, very difficult. I find at the moment they are selling, a lot of hotels are buying their catering egg in for about £1.10. So I will go to 120, 125. I don't like coming down any lower than that. But trying to educate them to buy the free range is difficult. I've got a few hotels, 4 stars in, and they will pay for the extra quality. I've got bakeries, mind saying that, and they're quite happy to pay for the free range status. But I got a couple of customers, one of them I've just got into now, and I thought, oh, I'm going to be in there with 80 dozen a week. That's what I thought, and that was what he was telling me initially. I got a job to get 15 dozen in there a week. I am convinced he's still buying his egg from his existing provider, which is caged egg, which was 2 weeks old. I was trying to tell him my egg is fresh. You get it a day as laid. I know what he's using my egg for, poached egg. That's why he's kept it aside, just for the poached egg. And every other egg is going in, or everything else he makes. So I'm trying to get him out of that. Oh, inspections. The dreaded word for everybody, I think. Yeah. I think in March this year, I had 4 or 5 inspections. They all come when you lamb in. They know you're busy. They know you're under stress. Oh, we'll come and see you then. It's pain. Freedom Foods, that's an RSPCA body one. As I sell to supermarkets as well, I've got to have the Freedom Food ticket. So that involves usually a 3-hour inspection. They come along and they look it up. The main thing they would look at, I would say with Freedom Foods, is the welfare of the bird. So when they first come, they measure the shed up to make sure you've got enough space, make sure you've got enough feeding track, make sure your nest boxes are big enough, make sure you've got enough water. They measure the field. They actually do absolutely everything. Once they've got you on system, they just fine-tuning you then. But every year I would have a Freedom Foods inspection, and it's usually, I would say, just the general health of the bird they were looking at. Trading standards, they come along, they always take a sample of the feed I'm feeding the bird, and they take it back to analyse it to make sure there's no irregularities with it. They also will look at my sales and production records. DEFRA, they come once a year. This year they came in March as well. I don't know why. They will look at health of the hen, but not the same amount as Freedom Foods. The main thing DEFRA will be looking at is paperwork. Mainly, I would say the salmonella testing. Because if you're not up to date with your salmonella, it's £400 fine, like that. Lion egg. I got to show who caught my birds one year, although I got a certificate to show who caught my birds. Salmonella testing they look at as well. Who does my rent-a-kill? My rent-a-kill I have at the moment. They want to look at certificates of them. Fire extinguishers. Washing hand protocol. I didn't have a washing hand sign on the wall one year and I got ticked off for that. That can take up to 4 hours, that inspection. Then we have internal audits. Because I sell to supermarkets, I've got to do an internal audit every 6 months. And then we've got a noble audit, which is who I sell my 3,000 dozen to every week. They do an audit as well, and they put me on in a league table. And if I'm on top of the league table, I'll get an extra penny a dozen. Well, I've told them where to go with that extra penny, and because I'm nowhere near the top. I think there's about 300 in the league, and I think I was about 229th last, because I'm selling too many eggs privately. That's why they don't like me. Legislation. If you look at the eggs, the number that you've got on the front, sorry, on the egg itself, it says 1 UK 13281. Yeah, now, funny you say that, I believe you. I
couldn't see some of them there.
I did get picked up by DEFRA a few months ago, but my stamper wasn't very good. So I had to re-stamp some eggs. I got ticked off for that. Well, that's good enough. The trouble is, as the egg gets older, the top of the egg is rougher very often, and the stamper doesn't take to the rough egg. Right, we're coming back to the number. I don't know.
Just a few more minutes.
We're nearly there.
Any other group?
We're nearly there. I can't believe where I've waffled off to. If you look at if you look at the UK number, it says 1 UK on mine. You said you'll have to believe it. Yeah.
No,
If
it's
it-
on mine.
It's all right then.
He's always there.
If you see a zero, I don't know if you know, but that's organic. 0 is organic. 1 is free range. 2 is barn. 3 is caged. Okay, because I went to a market one day and they had to sign up free range eggs, and I just nosed in and looked at the egg, and I thought, oh, that's not free range. It said 3 on it. Yeah.
But there was a guy, wasn't there? who
Oh, there's
was
been a few.
Selling them on his, front door, and it was an honesty box, and he was going to the local supermarket and buying budget eggs and selling them.
Yeah,
selling
I
them
can
on.
believe it. There's quite a few people.
Done by trade description.
Well, the DEFRA inspection who inspects me inspects all of Wales, a lot of the Midlands area. He's always telling me how he's taking people to court for that type of thing. And I've got to behave myself very well because he lives in Penavey, which is only 4 miles away. Yeah, and the last 4 numbers are my number. They're my individual numbers. So the first one tells you is it caged, free range, barn, organic. Second one is the country, UK. I go to a lot of shops, competitors I sell eggs to, against. And I open it, I always look at their egg. And sometimes it says FR on it, France. NL, Netherlands. Very, very common to find those stamps on the eggs.
One more thing I was going to say, once I was buying pre-cooked shelled eggs in glass, because they find it's a bit to cook eggs for sandwiches.
Oh God.
They're scared they got salmonella from the thing, but they were buying
Yeah.
and shelled in water glass from Spain.
So I'm going to check my eggs every time.
I have got a packing station number on the label. Our labels are very, very basic. And I got told off last night. I was in a promotional evening and this chap said, you've got to change your label. And I said, I know. It's been like it for 3 years. I've got to do something about it. So I'm going to do something about it after being told off. But all the information is legal, is actually on there. Everything you need is a PS number on there, which is packing station. And that is derived from the trading standards in Bridgend. You've got to go through trading standards. So that's where I got my packing station number. So I was legal. When I was out of egg, I could go and buy egg off some other farmer and bring them in because I got a packing station number.
Is the range a better standard than organic? Is it one sense organic, just the feed you give them?
That's the difference. The actual bird health, size of the shed and everything else is the same, but the feed is different. Yeah, it's the organic.
So have you ever thought of doing organic?
It's the price of feed. I'm paying £250 a tonne now. Organic be more like £350.
But could you charge more for your eggs?
A little bit, but since the credit crunch, organic trade has gone downhill.
Yeah.
It's only now the organic is slightly rising now.
What's wrong with you? They should support people.
Just a couple of more points. Coming to the salmonella testing, I did mention earlier, I mentioned the fine earlier, £300 to £400 or £400, and it can rise after that if you don't do the paperwork right. I've got to test my birds every 15 weeks. If I do it 16 weeks, I'll be fined. So it's got to be every 15 weeks. That is how strict it is at the moment. So I do mine at 24 weeks, 39 weeks, 52, and 66. That's
Do you
roughly.
do that or just get vetted?
All that, I'm nearly there. All that involves is I do it myself. I do that myself. It means taking muck samples as you walk around the shed, and you pop the samples in a bag, send them off to some laboratory, and then they'll send you back the results. And so far, touching wood, it's always been negative. There's very, very few cases of salmonella in the UK now at the moment. Yeah. Daily record sheet. We've got to have who I sell the eggs to, how many eggs did I sell them, how many eggs were produced, and also temperatures in my cooler and temperatures inside the shed for the birds as well. And when you buy the flock, it comes with a passport, believe it or not. Even the birds have got a passport. Oh, I did have another one. Where's time gone? Health and safety. All staff have a basic food and hygiene certificate. We test for salmonella every 15 weeks. Eggs must not be washed. So that's why I say we've got to have the eggs clean. Because if you wash the egg, it reduces the shelf life. So the eggs must not be washed. And eggs, for us, we must store them below 20 degrees centigrade. And for the future, I just want to get away from a main packer and sell more myself. And that's it. There we are. Okay.